Yo, what's good guys, Max here, helping you guys level up your game, and in this video I'll be giving you some tips and tricks on how to win more gunfights in Fortnite. So stay tuned and make sure you watch the video until the very end to find out the most important thing that will help you win more fights in Fortnite. So without any further ado, let's get into the video. So winning more gunfights in Fortnite really comes down to how good your mechanics are and how good your movement, positioning and game sense is. Those two things are very different from each other, but they obviously all relate to the same thing, which is how good you are at winning fights. And mechanics is something that is very overlooked nowadays. A lot of people think that mechanical skills are, just miles ahead of movement, positioning, and game sense. However, I personally disagree. I think that how good your movement, positioning, and game sense is overall really determines how good of a player you are. And the reason I say that is if you have a top game sense and you're able to outsmart your opponent and read them like a book, then you don't necessarily need the mechanical skills that everyone is looking to improve all the time. Correct me if I am wrong, but I'm pretty sure that if you ran into someone who has better game sense than you and outsmarts you and basically just puts you in a spot where you're not able to exploit your opponent, and for example let's just say that you're very good at build fighting. If the person boxes up, then build fights are really not going to be necessary here, because you're going to have to calm down if you want to eliminate that person, and if you don't have the best box fighting skills, then the person with the better game sense in that position is going to exploit that weakness of yours and basically kill you in a box fight. And that's what game sense is all really about. You basically have to predict what your opponent is going to do next and what their player style is like and what they're pretty much thinking. You kind of have to get into their head and get into their way of thinking and be able to counter it while fighting them basically, and that is sometimes very hard to do. So I do recommend you guys really spend a lot of time on playing solos or just pub games or anything, and try to improve your game sense, because it's a very valuable skill to have and it will actually translate to multiple other games. Anyways, coming back to the point of how good your mechanics should be if you want to win more gunfights, the thing I would say for building is, it's not the most important factor of winning gunfights anymore, in my opinion, because as long as your building is at least okay and you know how to do 90s and maybe some very simple retakes, then you should be good, because box fighting is the meta and it has been the meta since pretty much season 8, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, if I'm honest. But moving on to your editing, it should be pretty good. Edits are very important in box fights, and you can practice them in edit courses or box fights in creative mode. And then moving on to your shooting, your accuracy has to be very good nowadays, especially if you're playing on keyboard, you have to practice aim all the time. If you're playing on controller, then it's a completely different story. I'm pretty sure all of you know that aiming on controller is much easier than aiming on PC. That's pretty arguable, but aim assist is always there and it's always a starting point, so those are pretty much the mechanics that you should really be working on. Editing and aiming is something that is the most important in today's Fortnite, in my opinion. But moving on to how you should actually go about your gunfights to win more of them, you should not rush them, and you should basically overbuild whenever you can, because overbuilding will save you, and a lot of people just take the 50-50s, and that's something you never ever want to be doing if you want to win more gunfights. Now, for those of you that don't know what 50-50s are, it's basically fights where building is very limited and not very not used much basically, and it's all about gun skill at that point, and you should never rely on your guns doing decent damage all the time in this game. I mean, it's just been proven that shotguns can be super unreliable sometimes, and if your hits aren't super clear on your opponent, then sometimes it can be a struggle to get any decent damage off of your opponent. So make sure you guys are utilizing building. As long as you're building walls and you're boxing up to protect yourself, then you're completely fine. Just make sure you don't take the 50-50. And I see a lot of people doing this. Don't just jump into your opponent's box. Try and make an edit play or something, man. It's not that hard. So the absolute most important thing I would suggest you guys never ever do and avoid at all costs is playing and jumping into 50-50s. Never be doing that. It's so easy for your opponent to just get you killed, and it's called a 50-50 for a reason. You're never gonna win them consistently. And into the final tip of the video, guys, make sure you're very aware in fights and you're able to track your opponent well whenever you can, because tracking your opponent has got to be one of the most important things to win more gunfights in Fortnite for sure. And the reason I say that is because whenever you do lose your opponent in fights, then it's going to be very hard to find them, because after a build fight or a box fight, you are really going to struggle to even distinguish what's yours and what's your opponent's in terms of builds and stuff, and that will get very confusing, and your opponent can basically get the jump on you instead of you getting the jump on them. So that's the reason you guys should really be aware of where your opponent is and try and predict what they're gonna do next. But anyways, with that being said, the video does come to an end, and thank you so much for watching the video the whole way through. If you would like to support me and the channel, then make sure you use the code MAXGamer7 in the item store, and that will basically grant me a percentage of the money spent when you buy something in the store, and any and all purchases are really appreciated. Also, make sure to leave a like on the video if you have enjoyed or learned something new, and subscribe to the channel with notifications on to never miss another upload ever again. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.